Hey everyone, Andy here. Here's a fun one for you. Batman versus Daredevil, right? Who would win? A question as old as time itself, which is of course an exaggeration, but it is a question that's out there. Many comic fans do ponder this question, and I think there is this online consensus, perhaps is the wrong word. There is an online idea that's floating around, which basically says that the question has been answered. When DC and Marvel had that crossover, I think it was issue one, DC versus Marvel, or Marvel versus DC, Bullseye had materialized into the Batcave and taken Robin as a hostage at knife point. And Batman has somehow maneuvered his way over and basically knocked him out with one punch. And thereafter, Bullseye had said that, wow, that punch was like harder than Daredevil's, and basically implying that Batman was a better fighter than Daredevil. And so, in a fight between Daredevil and Batman, Batman should obviously win. Because, I mean, Bullseye is a pretty accomplished, competent fighter, and he's given Daredevil a run for his money many times. In the end, in most cases, Daredevil, I think, usually wins. Has Daredevil ever lost to Bullseye? Not to my recollection. Maybe in a weakened state or something, or maybe in some sort of a, you know, drug-induced haze. I don't know, but I think in a one-on-one fight, Daredevil would usually definitely win against Bullseye. And so if Batman is able to take out Bullseye with a punch, whereas with Daredevil it takes him a bit of time, Bullseye gives him a bit of grief. Ergo, Batman is the more competent, better fighter. But look, I mean, yes, Batman's a great fighter, and he knocked out Bullseye. That maybe Bullseye was more disoriented than Batman was. A number of factors could have taken place. Perhaps in a more sort of neutral setting, they would have had a better fight, a proper fight, and perhaps who knows, would Bullseye have won? Highly unlikely with the popularity of Batman. It's very unlikely that he would lose to a character like Bullseye. Having said that, Ye- yes, I think popularity, fan base does have a impact and influence on how characters are perceived in overall conflicts. But if you look at it from a more comic logic perspective, if you actually compare Batman and Superman, sorry, Batman and Daredevil, you can't really compare Batman and Superman. That's a silly idea. If you compare Batman and Daredevil, and you really assess their powers and their abilities and their resources, I think you get a much better picture of what the likely outcome may be. So look, with Daredevil, he lost his sight at a very young age when he was struck by this super goo, which landed in his eyes and taking away his eyesight, but it gave him these enhanced senses. So super hearing, super smells, super taste, echolocation, right? He has this like Daredevil radar, where it's a bit like a bat, I suppose. He can operate in the dark. This radar bounces off things, so he knows exactly where he is at all times, and he can use this ability to, like, dodge bullets and anticipate the movement of his adversaries. It's a pretty cool superpower. And actually, I suppose Daredevil in that sense is a proper superhero with superpowers, because enhanced senses is a superpower. Actually, also in the Daredevil series that came out, the original series, not the new one, Born Again, but the original one that came out a little while ago, it was hinted that Daredevil had enhanced stamina, and he had like an enhanced healing ability, right? He could take a heck of a beating and still come back. And if it was a really, really bad beating, he would have to recover, but it would take him less time to recover than a normal human being. So chances are that there is a more super element to Daredevil than meets the eye. He's a very accomplished fighter. He's an extremely agile acrobat, gymnast, athlete, whatever you want to call him. He's been trained by ninjas. Um, he's one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in the Marvel universe, hands down. I suppose the only one who could really, I suppose, best him possibly is Shang-Chi, who is the master of martial arts, right? He knows every martial art, and if you put him against any other hand-to-hand fighter, logically and I think historically speaking, Shang-Chi should be the top fighter. But taking that aside, I mean, I still think Daredevil would give him a heck of a run for his money because of his enhanced senses, and Shang-Chi is just a very accomplished fighter with no real superpowers. But yeah, I think Daredevil would still be a heck of a fight. Now, you take all of these things into consideration, and you look at his weaknesses, right? So Daredevil's power sometimes can be his weakness. So his enhanced senses could sometimes work against him. I think mostly his hearing. His hearing is the one that gets in the way. So if someone creates a loud sort of humdrum noise barrier, that would perhaps put Daredevil off. And I think the best way to demonstrate this in this video is to go back, I think maybe about 10, 15, 10, 10, 12 years ago, there was a story where Daredevil fought this character called Ikari, who was this, I think, Japanese assassin who basically put on a variation of Daredevil's old costume with a slightly more oriental touch. And he had the same powers as Daredevil, so heightened senses. But the advantage that he had that Daredevil wasn't aware of was that Ikari could actually see. And so I think during a period where they might have been in fighting in the rain, Daredevil was under the impression that because the rain it fuddles up Daredevil's senses, right? There's pitter patter everywhere. He can't properly use his, I think, echolocation, and he can't use his hearing as well. And so he thought that they were at the same sort of vantage point. But no, because Ikari could see. And because of that, he basically pummeled Daredevil almost to death, which again shows that sometimes Daredevil's greatest sort of power can be his greatest weakness. So that's a consideration that we've taken on board. Now let's move on to the Batman. And I think his list of attributes will be far less than Daredevil's in the sense of any enhancements. He is basically, I think, it's two of his biggest assets are the fact that he has a genius level intellect and he is a multi billionaire, which means that he can summon immeasurable resources at his disposal. Now, this has allowed him to travel the world at a very young age and learn from the best martial art masters there are. He's also been trained by ninjas. He knows almost every martial art there is to know. Is he the best fighter in the DC universe? Well, I've read comics in the past where he's been bested by a number of adversaries, including Deathstroke, and Deathstroke gave him a real beating. So he's not the best fighter, but much like Daredevil, he is one of the best fighters in the DC universe. He has an amazing batsuit, which is bulletproof and fire retardant. He can ride the airwaves using his cape. And I think, yeah, he has lots of gadgetry, as I mentioned earlier. I think I might have mentioned earlier the Batmobile, the Batcave. And he's an absolutely fantastic detective. Now, you take all of these things and you then question what are his weaknesses. And I think the biggest weakness he has is that he's basically, essentially, a non enhanced human being. If he his advantages are external advantages. So he uses his gadgetry, but if his gadgetry was to be neutralized, I don't know, there was some sort of electrical surge and all of his, his utility belt just stopped working. All of the pellets that he has, his gas pellets and his special hearing aids and his sight aids, if those things were to disappear, then all that Batman would have are his fighting skills. And there's lots of accomplished fighters out there. But I think Batman's advantages are through his gadgetry and through his immense resources. I mean, at this point, I think it's fair to say that Daredevil is, on paper, on the face of it, he has an advantage. He has a natural advantage, which can't be taken away. Batman's gadgets can be taken away. Daredevil's advantages can be, I suppose, exploited against him in the sense of his super hearing. But they can't be taken away. They are a part of who he is. And so I think the best way to put it is this, and hopefully this will keep both camps, whichever camp you fall into, Daredevil or Batman. Maybe this will keep you happy, or maybe you'll be even more infuriated at the end of it. But I think the best way to deal with this is this, and this is my genuine thought process here. I'm not trying to please anyone. This is me just assessing all the facts that I've stipulated so far. I think that if you have Batman and Daredevil go against one another in a setting where the Batman has had time to assess the situation, it's a pre-arranged fight. It's not immediate, it's not spontaneous, it's pre-arranged. I think in that scenario, it's it's highly probable that the Batman would win because he'd be able to set the stage to his advantage. Again, he's a genius at what he does, and he's a great strategist, and he has so many resources. And no matter what powers Daredevil may have, I think if you put him in that situation, I think his ability to strategize will allow him to win that fight against Daredevil. But again, I'm talking about a pre-arranged setting, not something that's spontaneous. However, if you put these two characters in a spontaneous situation, or better still, you put them into a no holds barred boxing ring, right? All they're wearing are boxing shorts. It's Matt Murdock versus Bruce Wayne. Then I think Bruce will have a disadvantage. Matt Murdock's natural senses will just allow him to duck and dive, and dish out the punishment on Bruce. And let's not forget, enhanced along with the enhanced senses, there is the enhanced stamina, and he can't switch that off. You can't take that away from Matt Murdock. It's a part of who he is. So, in a very natural, pure setting, where there's no strategy, there's no prearranged advantages, it's just one man against the other. I have to say, I think that in that situation, Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, or aka Daredevil, would win the fight. Bruce Wayne would probably give a good fight in return. I think he'd last a few rounds, but yeah, I think it would go to Matt Murdock. It would go to Daredevil. That's just that's me thinking with my non-emotional logical hat on, regardless of which character I like better. And to be honest with you, I like both characters. I would say equally. I think they're quite they're creatures of the night. They're very similar. They're very similar. In fact, I mean, Daredevil has that whole echo location radar that he uses is very much like a bat power. It's he's like a Batman in a red suit. Um, but yeah, I like both characters. I would say almost equally. I think I like Batman first. I kind of grew into Daredevil as I got older and started collecting Daredevil comics. But yeah, purely logical, no emotional ties. I would have to say that in a one-on-one neutralized setting, I think Daredevil would win this fight. But listen, that's not taking away from either character, right? They're both hugely popular characters. One could argue Batman was, is, and always will remain a more popular character, but I think Daredevil's getting there. I think he is. And yeah, two great characters. It'd be interesting. It would be interesting. Anyhow, guys, thank you as ever for listening to me rambling on. Really appreciate your time. I really do. And as ever, like and subscribe if you will. And I will see you in the next one.